I'm going to show you how to drive a manual transmission today. The hardest part for you guys is going to be getting into first and slipping that clutch. It's going to be the hardest part. I'll go over it quite a few times for you. Starting out in first gear is going to be your hardest gear for sure. It's going to take a lot of patience. You have to get the feel for the clutch, the friction zone. Your car is going to be completely different than my car, but in general, the proper theory is the same. When you push the clutch in, you're disengaging the transmission from the engine. When you let the clutch out, you're engaging the transmission to the engine to try to match the spin. The clutch is trying to match the spin of the engine into the transmission. The biggest part, getting it into first gear and slowly releasing the clutch. So to test where your friction zone is, get on flat ground, like I barely have right here, but take the e-brake off, put it in the first gear, and don't touch the gas. Just slowly release the clutch pedal. Okay, now we're moving forward a bit. So you found the friction zone. Do that a couple times, or a few times, however many times you guys need to do it to get comfortable, and try to do it obviously in a parking lot, somewhere you don't really need to confine yourself to a specific space. All right, and you're gonna wanna do that a couple times too. No e-brake, put it into first gear, and you know, as you get kind of comfortable with releasing the pedal, start putting your hands on the wheel, whatever, put your hand on the shifter, one hand on the wheel, and look up while you're releasing that pedal. So that kind of helps you just get the feel of it without watching. So if you do need to give it gas, and you can't just start releasing the clutch like that starting out, obviously when you're on the road, you do need to give it a little gas. So whenever I start giving it gas, whenever I'm on the road, this is a little trick that I learned from someone 12 years ago that was teaching me how to drive a manual, is rev it up a little bit first. That way when you're releasing the clutch, you don't need to have that perfect 5% throttle action as you're coming up. So this is the whole point, is you need to be able to release the clutch and get that throttle just 5% pressed down. So to me, this has always been easier by releasing the clutch slowly. After you find the friction zone, you can kind of get to the friction zone first and then start, you know, I start patting the pedal almost to get a little bit of throttle action going before I consistently hold it at, you know, right here is 1500 RPMs, but you know, it's different for every car. I won't be able to tell you a specific procedure or formula on how to do this. So like I said, when you're starting out, get on flat ground to where you don't need your brake at all. Put it into first gear and slowly let the clutch out without touching the gas. So we're moving forward. And luckily I live on a hill, so once I get going, I can keep going. But that's not the point of this video. You can even use your e-brake too. I left mine up, and then, all right, it starts to bog and it kind of wants to lurch forward, but it can't because the e-brake's on. But this is probably the easiest on your car to do. Some cars you might need to give it a little gas, but I'm trying to get you to just learn where your friction zone is without looking. All right, so I'm going. There we go. And now I can fully release the clutch pedal whenever I'm about 4 miles an hour in this car. Time you'll be doing downshifts like that. So I also have a heel toe braking video on my channel too. All right, let's get going. So See how I kind of pumped the throttle real quick? That's just what someone taught me whenever I was learning how to do it. And it really, really helped me. Because some people try to tell you to keep a constant position of the throttle. And to me, that doesn't work as well. Because, you know, it's hard to do that. Because once you start getting on that friction zone, it starts to become difficult to keep the constant throttle. Like I said, just go to a empty parking lot that's somewhat flat and start practicing. So let's just get the friction zone right again. So don't look down at the clutch pedal. Put your car in first gear and look up. See, now it's fully released, didn't give it any gas, you're good to go. So if you can slowly release it and get it to move without giving it any gas, I would say you have pretty good feel of where your friction zone is, and you could probably start applying some gas, kind of get it up a little faster than that. So let's say you understand where your friction zone is. Kind of get the feel for the throttle. I tap the throttle a bit while I'm releasing the clutch. That way I don't have to hold a constant throttle, because it is hard. And then I get on the throttle whenever the clutch is released a bit. So just keep pumping that throttle until you're going. So I can't really tell you your procedure for speeds either. First gear to me, if I'm going between 4 and 15 miles an hour, I'm probably in first gear. If I'm in second gear, I'm going between 15 and I can go up to about 54 or 55 miles an hour in top second gear. That's at red line too, so I can't go to 60 or anything. But if I'm really kind of, you know, not in a hurry, I'll shift to second, and, you know, between 10 and 15 miles an hour. My car can do that. I don't know if your car can, but let's try that here. So pump the throttle real quick. Yeah, it was kind of a rougher start, but not bad. So I'm about 12 miles an hour. And slowly release the clutch pedal with just a tiny bit of gas in second gear. You don't need much because you're already going. So this is why it makes it easier once you're going. You don't need to give it too much gas. So let's put that all together. So when you get in the second gear, you're going to want to slowly release the clutch, but just give it a little gas just to kind of match the RPMs. If you haven't matched perfectly, you might not need all the gas. You know, it depends on your car. It depends on the feel. This will take you weeks or months to get used to. Put it in first gear. Blip the throttle. Okay, so blip the throttle. And then whenever I get to my friction zone, I'm gonna just kind of hold it there. Okay, so blip. Hold it there. Get up to, you know, 2,500, 3,000 RPMs. Shift to second. Slowly release it while just keeping your foot just on the throttle. So if you're just sitting here waiting, just take your foot off the clutch, put it into the neutral position for the shifter, and let it rest. Let it go to sleep for a bit. Give it a break. Pretty soon you'll be doing rev match downshifts, heel toe action for braking. You know, because I started out just like you are, trying to learn how to drive a manual, getting frustrated, but just keep at it. You'll learn it in no time. The trick is just to keep doing it, keep practicing. Go to a parking lot, think about it. I mean, to me, thinking about it helps just as much as practice does. So if I can visualize what I'm gonna do, it helps a lot. If you guys have any more requests for me to do, or any suggestions at all, please let me know in the comments. Like, subscribe.